Hey everybody, welcome back to A Worm's Eye View. Gosh, it's been a while, hasn't it, Thatcher? It feels like forever since we've done a podcast.
It has been, and we've been trying to, but life has gotten busy, obviously. I know this is a lack of ownership, but that's what but life has gotten busy chasing toddlers around, and you've been busy camping and living your best life. And some of our scheduled recordings have been canceled or postponed because people like to set stuff on fire or protest stuff like that. So
yeah, 2020 has been pretty interesting so far. So I believe
essential employees.
At our last podcast, this would be previous the live watch of Back to the Future. Again, thank you to everybody for signing in and watching along with us. We had talked about this movie Into the Wild. And this was neither one of our picks. This was something in the randomizer that showed up, and it's from 2007. I had previously seen this movie. However, Thatcher, you had not. And I will say that it is not what I recalled it watching it this second time. And we can get into that.
And it's what I expected.
Yeah, I guess it is. It is pretty much.
So before we get into this, spoiler alert, right? Because we're going to spoil the shit out of this if you haven't heard this story before. But I think it's important to know that this is based on a true story.
True, yes.
A real person, that there was then a book written by John Krakauer, and then there was this movie that came out in 2007, which we're about to talk about. I have not read the book, and I don't pretend to know the real Chris McCandless was his name, I believe.
Yes.
I'm only going to be speaking about the movie. Because I have nothing good to say about this.
So you're not throwing stones at the poor fella.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't want to sit here and pretend that I knew Chris McCandless or that I read John Krakauer's interpretation of this story. So those might be very good, but this movie is very bad, and we'll get into that. But before we do, like you said, it was from 2007. Do you remember who directed this?
Yeah, Sean Penn.
Sean Penn, who my understanding is a bit of a blowhard.
A blowhard.
Blowhard these days in Hollywood. There's only two roles I remember him from, and they're the most obscure ever. There's no way you could ever guess which two I'm going to pick. But the first one is Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemount High.
Okay, yep.
The only other thing I can remember him in is in like 2 episodes of Friends. He played Phoebe's sister, Ursula's boyfriend. That's all I can remember him from. I know he's in a few things. The only thing that pops up in my head is he played Michael Douglas's younger brother in the movie The Game. I remember that. A very good movie, but he had a very small part in it. But Sean Penn does not have quite a director's resume. He's got this movie, Indian Runner, The Last Face, The Pledge, and The Crossing Guard. I mean, how much of a movie can you make about I'm assuming it's not about a crossing guard, but he doesn't have quite the repertoire when it comes to directing. Yeah, it's like Paul Blart, but with crossing guards instead of mall guards. But yeah, so and I don't dislike Sean Penn, but I do believe he has a bit of a reputation of being one of those Hollywood snobs. And when I went to Amazon to rent this, I saw Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars, and I just I kind of threw up in my mouth a little bit because Siskel and Ebert can fuck themselves. They are blowhards as well. Like all I could pick.
One of them's dead. All right.
And you know what? He died of what was it? Mouth cancer or throat cancer, which I think is ironic because all that came out of his mouth was fucking sewage. You know what I mean? That's like, I'm not saying he deserved to die of cancer, but fuck that guy. So here's a story for you, because I love the Friday the 13th franchise, right? And in the first one, Betsy Palmer was Jason's mother. And she was a famous stage actress before she took that role. And she thought the script and the film was garbage, but she needed a new car. So when they reached out to her, she said, yeah, I'll star in your little movie. Siskel and Ebert were so perturbed by that how dare this stage actress slum so low, that they actually published in their review her home address and encouraged fans to send hate mail to her.
Really? I didn't know
She
that.
got exactly 0 because fuck you, you fucks. Like I said, it's ironic that you died of throat or mouth cancer because all you did was spew cancer. But yeah, so at the start of this movie, I saw Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars, and I was like, all I could picture was him blowing Sean Penn during the premiere, and Sean Penn like sniffing his own farts. I was like, this is just. Ugh. I was like I said, knowing the story, this isn't going to be my cup of tea. I would
get it. Yeah, I'd get it to sour taste in your mouth. I get that.
And then as I'm watching like the credits roll through and I see who's involved with this movie, I'm like, it's just nothing but those fucks from Hollywood that do as I say, not as I do. Because ironically, probably I'll get into that later. Actually,
okay. Gravy.
I'll stop talking. I think I've said enough hatred towards the people involved.
So let me run through a few things before we get going.
Before you say anything, I understand the irony of shitting on somebody who shits on things and saying that I hate them for shitting on things. But normally I'm positive about movies, but this one is just such a flaming turd that that's why partly I think we've dragged this episode out so long is because neither one of us want to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into it. So Chris McCandless, he's the son of wealthy parents. He graduates from Emory University as a top student / athlete. He chooses to give up his savings to charity, rid all of his possessions, and set out on an adventure into the Alaskan wilderness. I think that's a pretty good synopsis.
Yep. And for those of you who haven't seen the movie,
that's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. There was some more tagline.
There was some words on the box. Yeah. Lose yourself. And then the other is take a journey into the beauty, into the danger, into the wild. That's what I came across.
I saw a third one then. So
nice.
Line up real quick. Into the heart, into the soul.
Okay. I
bet Sean Penn wrote that one.
Yeah, he probably did. That does have a lot of self-reflection and self.
Smugness.
So, all right. So everything else we will get into during the movie. Do you have anything else before we start?
The only thing I have is a drink pairing.
Oh yeah, drink pairing. That's right.
I did think of a drink pairing while
I did too.
I had a lot of time to reflect during this 2 hour and 30-minute snooze fest. But yeah, so I would pair this with something earthy, crunchy, and the earthiest, crunchiest thing I could think of would be Magic Hat number 9, because that actually is brewed with it's like dandelion petals or something. So you take a sip of it and it tastes like you just stuck your face in a lawnmower. But it's not a bad beer.
So not a Magic Hat fan. Okay.
I'm not. I liked it for a short time, and then it just one day it tasted off to me. And you have that bad experience with something, and then it just
yeah.
So I used to really like Magic Hat, and now it just tastes like dandelions to me. So I'm out. But yeah, what would you pair with this?
There's only one thing I think, and that's just straight up bootleg and moonshine.
That's good. Yeah.
Because when this cat goes into the wilderness, man, does he go into the wilderness and rough it?
Yeah.
So that's all I could think of is if this cat was to just the only thing that would have made this movie really interesting is if he started his own bootleg and moonshine running up and down the river stuff. So
yes, I would have much rather watch him make moonshine for 2.5 hours or a documentary on the history of moonshine. Or ironically, I'm not really a nature guy like you are. I would have rather go on a 2.5 hour hike or walk or something like that. This was a complete waste of time. But
all right,
let's get into it.
Let's go.
I'm excited. So it starts with a Lord Byron quote.
And the whole gist of this whole quote is that love nature more than your fellow man. And that's what it's all about. It's, hey, I go out into the woods, not because I don't like man, but because I love nature more than man.
That might be poignant for 2020 where people don't seem to like each other. But
yeah. So there's a lady that wakes up in bed and she's obviously had a nightmare, and she says, I hear you, Chris. I heard him, Chris. Or she's talking to her husband who wakes up, and it's obvious she's having a nightmare about somebody.
Now, you haven't read the book, right?
No, I've not. I have not read any of Krakauer pieces, even though I know he is one of very. And at this point, there might be more, but he was one of few people that he went up with the group on Everest. That there was 7 or 10 people that died in the trip. And he was one of the ones that went up and made it back. So that's where I really know him from.
See, you should have written about that instead. That would have been far more interesting. But yeah, so like we talked about, I hadn't seen this before, or read the book, but I was pretty sure I knew what happened at the end, which I was correct. But I always thought he was like cross country on a bus, and then the bus broke down, and he decided to fuck it, I'll just live in it. So that part was a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, like you said, and we find out that that's Chris's mom, and she's like having like a little panic attack. So obviously Chris is like gone to some degree. We don't quite know what.
Yep. So there's this and throughout the credits there's the opening of the movie, there's a train that's going through the countryside, and there's snow, and then you see a sign that says Fairbanks, Alaska, and there's little subtle quotes that are coming across the screen in script, like written, like handwriting, and it's things that he had written in his diary on his trip. And then it cuts to I tried to do really tough to take notes for this movie because there's no real scenes. It's a flow. So the next thing I have is really, it cuts to him. He's getting a book about flora and fauna, plants and edibles out in the wild.
Spoiler alert, he didn't read it real good. Should have gotten the
cliff notes. He should have gotten the cliff notes. And his last note that comes across the screen is that he's going out to land for an extended period of time, and he won't be, able to be found or whatnot.
Yeah. The only thing I want to talk about in the credits is it says music by Eddie Vedder.
Yeah. And did you hear his voice throughout?
I did. Yeah. And so he's from Pearl Jam, right? Was he from anything else?
No. He's the lead singer of Pearl Jam. Yeah. I can picture him out there in the Alaskan wilderness with this guy going, how he used to shake his head when you can just see him going nuts out in the woods.
But yeah, so in the early 90s, you didn't really have to sing. You could just kind of.
It's called the grunge movement.
Yeah, right. But yeah, that's all Chris was missing. He needed an acoustic guitar out in be a total douchebag. But yeah, so Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam did all of the music for the entire movie.
I recognize the voice, but I didn't catch that at the beginning.
Yeah, it was in the credits. It just said like music by Eddie Vedder. Yeah, look at that.
Here we go. Yeah. So the next thing what this movie is it chronicles Chris's transformation after he graduate quickly, and then I'll get back into try to do the scene by scene, but it chronicles his life on the road up until his Alaskan adventure. He's building up to go to Alaska. That's where he wants to go. He believes that's where nature truly is. So he meets, this whole slew and cast of characters throughout the movie, and it keeps going back to memory snippets of when he's with these people, and he's creating or getting enough materials and money in order to get to Alaska. So that's why it's kind of hard to follow the movie, because it cuts in and out.
It does, but not in a good way. You know what I mean? Like, that's my other problem with this is I don't particularly like the story, but I think the story wasn't presented well. Should we get into that now, or do you have notes scene by scene? Because I have, for instance. I
have sort of a flow to it.
Okay. Because I'm with you that, you get the gist that he's trying to save up money and he's going on this big adventure. But then within 5 minutes, he's in the Alaskan wilderness and he finds the bus within 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm really in for a fucking world of hurt. Because I was at least looking forward to the expedition where the bus would be like a reveal or something, even though it was on the cover. I'm like, this is a 2 hour and 30-minute movie and he's found that fucking bus in 10 minutes. I said, this is gonna suck.
Well,
I was right.
You thought that, and the first thing I put is, how the fuck's a bus get out there in the middle of Alaska?
Right, which to me, that would be a way more interesting story because I did read in the trivia that that's like a well-known spot that
Yes, it
people
is.
who are out there like hunting or
And
now,
trapping. Yep.
yeah, or people that have now read the story or seen the movie, thousands of people have gone to like trek there. Like that would be a cool trip for like you and I to take is go be like, yeah, we found the bus and then like turn around and come back.
Dude,
That-
you would not go out there.
I really wouldn't want to, but if there was a destination in mind, like we're gonna go find the bus from that story. So the next time I have to see that movie, I don't want to put a gun in my fucking mouth. Like that. But my whole point is the whole history behind how that bus got out there would be way more interesting than anything that happened.
Well, I don't. This is gonna sound like I'm calling you shallow, but I'm not. I just don't think maybe that you appreciate the introspectrum or introspective that happens through this movie. It's more about like the quote that Sean Penn probably put on there. It's it's about getting in touch with yourself and forgetting all of the society and being, his parents were about money and about status. And he was so not about that. And he had to live that way for such a long time that he couldn't wait to get out of it and just live free, just freedom.
Sure.
So I can kind of respect that a little bit to have somewhat of a silver spoon in your mouth and then spit it out and go live in the dirt. I have a little bit of respect for that.
Yeah, I could too. And again, that is like the one maybe redeeming quality he has. And again, I can't speak about Chris McCandless. I can't speak about the book. I can only speak about this movie. The portrayal of this character reminded me of Holden Caulfield from Catcher in the Rye, who is just a whiny little bitch and is like, everyone's a conformist, everyone's phony. He just seemed like a little bitch that needed a good slapping. And there are a couple scenes towards the end where I did start like really paying attention and getting invested for a second, and he let me down. And I'll save those for the end of the episode. But yeah, I did not like for this character at all, and knew what became of him and was kind of rooting for that until I found out it was a true story. And then I did kind of feel bad, but I was like, I hate this fucking guy. And,
all right.
And again, that's his portrayal in the movie. Maybe he was okay in the book. Maybe he's okay in real life, but
yeah. And I mean,
I understand adventure. I understand finding yourself, but he was a whiny little bitch in this movie.
Well, a privileged kid that wants to go to the hood,
Yeah, exactly. G-Unit.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a ripoff of it. What is it? What's the one with the blonde kid where it's where he's B-Rad? He's B-Rad and he goes to the hood. His dad's like a congressman or something.
I don't know anything.
Malibu's Most Wanted. Malibu's Most Wanted. That's shit. What it is. Hilarious.
You had me interested, except for isn't that Jamie Kennedy?
Yes. Yep, yeah, it is. He's actually kind of funny in that movie, dude.
All right. Well,
but anyway, so why don't we do this? Why don't we break it down into the times of the movie where he met these characters? Because I think there were some rich, interesting characters in this movie.
Sure. Yeah, far more interesting than our main character.
Yeah. So basically, we see that he gets dropped off, and the guy that drops him off really at the start, like there's a road and it ends, and then all you see is mountains and shit. And he's like, well, hey, here, take these boots with you. And he's like, if you manage to get out alive, look me up or whatever.
Yeah, I wrote my address in the boots or something like that.
Yep.
And I read in the trivia that guy played a cameo of himself.
Oh, really? No shit.
So I guess the guy in the film was that actual person who
dropped him off. That's creepy.
Dropped him off. It is creepy, right? Being like, yes, I was the last person that saw him alive.
That reminds me of Unsolved Mysteries back at TV show where they said when possible, the actual people have filled the spots.
Yeah. And he was probably thinking that too, to be perfectly honest. Like when he dropped him off, he's probably like, I am going to be the last person that sees this guy alive. Gringo.
Yeah.
So kid can't make it. The Punk Beach. And I originally thought he was going to Alaska in the dead of winter because there was snow on the ground. And I was like, oh, he didn't make it out. What a shocker. But it turns out it was like late spring.
Yeah.
It's weird, I guess. Alaska's cold. in spring? I don't know.
I don't care to find out.
I'm not familiar with the climate. But yeah, so he's like trekking through the snow and stuff, and it shows him like drinking water out of a river or something. He shoots a squirrel and eats that. Tim can do a squirrel noise.
And then he
finds the bus.
He finds the damn bus, and he's yelling for somebody, and then he goes, "All right, well, this will be my house." He beats the mattress up, the dust off the mattress, and gets himself set up, and he changes his name. He says he changes his name from Chris McCandles or whatever his name is,
yeah.
Alexander Supertramp. So whatever. So it kind of does a flashback to him graduating from Emory. He just does this. Oh, what do you call it? He's like narrating the scene and talking about how his folks, they shouldn't get married. And then he has dinner with his folks and they seem very uptight. And then
the relationship with his sister was a little weird, though. Yeah,
they seem to be. Go ahead.
It took me 3 scenes to figure out that was his sister and not his
Same here.
It was like, and then when you figured out it was his sister, you're like, that's a little creepy. And like, I don't know. It's not like he was touching her or anything like that, but just
no, they were just odd in their exchanges. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the fact that you weren't like, oh, it was brother and sister. Like you were like, oh, this is probably his girlfriend, and that's why mom and dad don't like her.
Yeah.
But why is he letting her drive? I'm gonna have to speak to him.
Yeah, it's weird.
Fucking daughter. Which I know is supposed to be more of a reflection on mom and dad, but right. Yeah. And yeah, so he graduated from college. I'm sure he's playing a lot of acoustic guitar in coffee shops and telling everybody how he could fix the economy after 1 semester of political science and economics. But great guy.
Yeah.
Him and I would totally be friends in real life.
Oh, you sure would.
We have a lot in common.
Sometime after this dinner, he decides, I'm busting out. He gives all of his money, which is like 21,000 and change, I believe, in his bank account, and he gives it to charity unbeknownst to his family. And he takes his beater car and he just heads west. He drives his car into a flash flood zone, which I think was pretty funny. He just drives it up to this jetty, parks there, and then the flash flood comes through and scares the piss out of him or whatever, and then he burns all of his money the next morning. It's like a stack of hundreds or something. He just burns, and I'm like, you friggin' botard.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I know you got nothing to say. So
nothing positive to say. I don't know. I just don't get.
So we come into, I think there's a lot of character dynamics throughout the movie. You see bad parents, you see a privileged child, whiner, as you would describe him, and you get to 2 characters here that I find are quite cool, and they're the hippies that are in the camper.
Yeah,
and he bumps into them.
Never seen the dude before, but the woman I immediately recognized as the girlfriend from 40-Year-Old Virgin. That was
I haven't seen that.
That's a really good movie.
Is it?
Yeah, we'll have to watch that. Maybe not even for the podcast, but just in general. But yeah, she was Steve Carell's girlfriend in the 40-Year-Old Virgin. And so yeah, I was hoping you would get to this quickly because it shows their relationship. They're a hippie couple, like they live in a van and they travel. They were super chill. Like I liked them a lot. And then within like 10 minutes of meeting them, he leaves them, right? And again, like a dick without saying.
Well, I'd say 10 minutes of the movie. I mean, correct, I think it's a day or 2, but
yeah, but 10 minutes in the movie, he leaves in the middle of the night without saying.
He does that to everybody, though. He pieces out like
a douchebag, and the woman like starts crying, and the husband has to console her. And from a movie making perspective, you're like, all right, okay, I guess they had to just get in and out of this relationship real quick. But another hour into the movie, they come back to this couple. And it's like, why did they do that? I feel like you would have been far more invested in this relationship if he pieced out at the end. But he burned that bridge like immediately, and then it shows the good times with them. You know what I mean? And from a movie perspective, you had already checked out of this relationship. You know what I mean? So it was like, fuck it.
Well, maybe they were following his journal closer than maybe they didn't took the Hollywood liberties. Maybe they stuck to the way his journal entries were.
Maybe, but again, I would have been far more invested if I like really fell in love with these characters and their dynamic with them. And I would be thinking the entire movie while I'm watching him out in the wild chase squirrels and shit. Oh my God, I wonder what happened to that hippie couple that made them part ways. Like, was there a car accident or maybe an overdose? But no, you already know within 15 minutes of this fucking movie that he just pieced out in the middle of the night. So when you see them later on in the movie, you're just not invested in that relationship anymore. And that's why this is a bad movie. It's not just
I get you,
but it's a poorly structured story.
I get you.
Movie.
Yeah, the character development could have.
Fuck yourself.
anyways, you do. So they say he's a leather tramp. Which I found was interesting. They said, well, we're rubber tramps. You're a leather tramp. And he kind of looks at him funny. And
I know it sounds sexual.
Yeah. Well, we drive our hippie van around, and which is on rubber. So we're rubber tramps. And you're a leather tramp. You're walking on your shoes.
And Tim, so I'm a jack stand tramp.
Jack, that's what I am. Yeah, that's right.
Very good time, baby.
He pieces out. In the next scene, I wrote it down because it's absolutely ludicrous. The cat's talking to an apple on the bridge. He's eating an apple on the bridge and he's talking to it. I don't know, whatever. It was just really weird. He's like, you're the best apple I ever had. And he just, I don't know.
Well, that was a really important scene for a 2.5-hour movie.
Well, you know what it is? That's called filler.
Yeah, and you need that when your runtime is 2 hours and 30 minutes.
So, and then it cuts back to let's say actual time where he's at the bus and he's in Alaska and he has this belt that he's taken his knife and he's cutting a new hole into it. He's obviously losing weight because he has to make the belt tighter. And he has a bag of rice that he's marked, sort of like what I used to do with my liquor when my kids were teenagers. I'd mark the line. All parents do it. And
if it's vodka, you fill it back up with water.
Yeah, and then walking around, I'm so messed up.
Yeah, well, I know, like after you drank the vodka, you fill it back up with water to get it back up to the line.
Wait, you did that?
No. Like my parents didn't mark my liquor. They didn't drink. They bought it only for me. But at friends' houses, if it was a clear liquor, you fill it back up with water to the line it was marked at. It was a little bit harder.
I'd have punched you in the dink.
It was a little bit harder to do with rum or whiskey, but vodka or gin, you could do that. But no, my parents didn't drink, but they would be like, do you want anything at the liquor store or any beer or anything? Because their philosophy was if I drank at home, I wouldn't need to go seek it elsewhere, which was partially true, except for it just made me a better drinker when I get out with my friends who had never touched alcohol before. I was like, you pussies, I've been drinking for years.
Yeah, with my bubble gum. No, my parents were the same way. It was cool. So, and after he does, and throughout this, there's scenes of him strutting around Alaska, and we're really cutting this short. But there really isn't much to say. Yeah. There isn't much to say. I mean, the only real substance to this movie are the characters that he meets on his journey. So he starts wheat farming, which I think is it's in the Midwest. And do you remember who the actor for the wheat farmer is?
Yeah, it was Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
Who I love. And
he was looking rough in this film, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, he
had some really bad sandbags going on. But
yeah. So are you going to talk about the wilderness anymore? Because there's just a couple things I want to say about the wilderness scenes.
Yeah, because I'll talk more about the wilderness when we get towards the end of the movie, because that's when it kind of just honed in on Alaska. But yeah, if you have stuff to say, by all means.
The only two things I have to say are there was the scene of him like fucking around in the river where he's floating on his back with his arms out and everything. And when they filmed that, it was below freezing. So I gotta say kudos to the actor for doing that. I fucking hate cold water. You know what I mean? Like, of all the mind fuckery or physical exertion of being a Navy SEAL, that would be the part that would, I'm out. Nope, no cold water. Nope.
Oh yeah, God, no. No. Like, you can't breathe. You can't freaking breathe.
To say I could do the other things, but I fucking hate cold water. And to me, like, 60-degree water is cold. You know what I mean? So that, and then from a character standpoint, I don't know if this actually happened in real life, but it happened in the movie. He shot that moose, right?
Yes.
And got like maybe one meal, two out of it, and wasted an entire fucking animal. And again, he tried to like smoke it and bury it, but I don't know. To me, it just felt a little selfish that because you want to go on this Alaskan adventure, you kill this innocent 1,000-pound animal to get like a steak off of. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing when you shoot a squirrel and you eat the squirrel, but like I said, that felt a little selfish to me. And Heather walked in about that moment too, and she's like, "What a fucking idiot! He just killed a moose and let the whole thing fucking rot." She's like, "I hope coyotes show up and eat him." And
and sure enough, coyotes show up.
They didn't eat him, but they did.
They were chewing on the carcass. Yeah.
I don't know the point of that scene.
To show the tribulations he went through.
Maybe.
Because when he was doing the wheat farming, there was a guy that he worked with there that was trying to teach him about that and was telling him, look, you have to do this. You have to cut the meat right away. Make sure no flies get on the meat. Otherwise, you're going to get maggots. You got to smoke it. And he tried, but he just was very unsuccessful at it. And so, I kind of got that. I think that they were just trying to show the difficulties. Don't go out and do this, you schmucks, is I think really what that kind of indicated. Although,
or Thatcher's going to make fun of you when you die.
That could be too.
Yeah, because spoiler alert, I will have no sympathy for you. But yeah, so back to the farming.
So yeah, there's I liked his boss's character. There was a scene in a bar. He's obviously working for him, doing wheat harvesting in huge fields. And there was a scene in the bar where they go in and they're talking about, he's trying to get to Alaska and I forget his character's name, but Vince Vaughn says to him, he says, look, how old are you? He's like, I'm 23. He's like, you're too young to be thinking about all this sort of shit. Just live. He's like, well, that's what I want to do. I want to go to Alaska and live. So I think that I like Vince Vaughn's character.
You don't know how hard it is to be 23 and rich. You don't know how hard it is to be rich.
And be able to burn hundreds. Yeah. I like the
You're a conformist.
I like the bar scene because it felt very real. And of course everybody knew each other. It was a small town.
Nothing like a townie bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make my skin fucking crawl.
What, you don't like townie bars?
I don't.
Really? Oh, I thought that's the salt of the earth, brother. What are you talking about? Those are good spots.
I know.
I don't want to go drinking some Manhattan club. I want to go to the Dewdrop Inn and watch.
I'm not saying I want to go to a Manhattan club, but the couple times I went to a townie bar in the town I lived in, you'd be like, walk in, it'd make your skin crawl.
Well, it depends on the bar.
No, it'd be like a guy who graduated in the 80s still talking about like fucking high school basketball games that he played. And it was
all right. Well, that's
like, there's a reason you never left this town.
Well, yeah, but those are rich, interesting characters, bro.
Sure. So I do have a question though, because I don't know if they didn't explain it or if I just missed it because I started working out halfway through this movie.
You did?
I was like, this is a waste of time. I'm going to do some push-ups and shit.
All right.
Vince Vaughn's character, a bunch of cops show up, and initially I thought they were looking for
him,
for Chris, because they were like, oh my god, like a missing persons report because they found that car, and and even though he took the license plates off it, you said
the VIN
caught in the mudslide, they could have found it from the VIN. But yeah, Vince puts his hands up and gets arrested.
He's like, "You got me, guys."
Yeah. Did they ever explain what?
No.
Did
no, but the guy that Chris was with in the silo, when they looked out and saw him getting arrested, he said something about a box. I told him not to.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? That's who it was. Maybe, he was working with
wife's head.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what, but it had something to do with a box. I don't know.
Again, another story that's more interesting than this one.
Yeah, I think they could have elaborated a little bit. Here's the part. Go ahead.
I was going to say, then the best part of this movie.
That's what I was about to say. Here's my best part.
All right. Take it away, Mr.
Yeah, 58 minutes, folks. At 58 minutes, you get your first set of boobs.
And oh my God, I will say those are perfect. Those are my favorite. Like perfect shape, size. And
so here's the deal.
Topless for what?
The whole scene. The whole scene.
And of course, this is when my wife walks in for the second time. She's like, "You little pervert!" And I'm like, "No, this movie just got good. I finally stopped doing push-ups.
It just got good. Yeah. Now that I have all my blood elsewhere.
Yeah.
So
fucking massive, mate.
So he gets this in his idea in his head that he wants to kayak on the river, or actually it's on some freaking crazy ass rapids. So he goes and he buys a kayak, doesn't get a permit, and he starts going down.
He's giving the government official a tough time. He's like, I need a permit to go down the river. And he's like, yep. And it was like, what, 12 years he had to wait?
The wait list is like 12 years to get on the river alone. Yeah, so he's like, you can go with a guide next week, but it's $2,000.
Yeah.
So he just buys a kayak. Like he ports it and he takes off, and he comes across this couple while he's on the river, and they're from Sweden or somewhere.
I was gonna guess Germany, but it might be Swedish.
I think he said they were from Denmark or somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere like
with an accent.
Europe, yeah.
Yeah, and the scene is just so funny because the guy and the girl are in the water and they're just making faces at each other, and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, and then, like, you want a hot dog?
Yeah, and she comes out topless, and she stays topless the entire time. Even when Chris comes up, and they're like, come have a hot dog, friend. And they're really funny. This couple are really, really cool. These guys, what I would say, are the equivalent of the two hippies we met earlier in the movie, but these guys are the
40 years earlier.
Yeah. They're the what's that generation? The Millennials. It's the millennials version of the hippies, because they're all about traveling and they're really cool. So he stops off. They cook him up a wiener, and he's like, "How far are you going down the river, man?" He's like, "You take this all the way to Mexico." And he's like, "Oh, for real?" He's like, "I'll go with you." And so then he hears a boop boop, which I don't know why you would do that.
The police.
Yeah, the popo's coming down the river, and he's like, "Oh, I got to take off. I'm not doing this legally." And he bugs out, and that's the last you see of the Swedish couple. And he actually paddles his ass all the way down to Mexico. Why?
That's my whole question for this entire
so he's in Mexico, and this is a very short stint in the movie. His stay in Mexico, he gets picked up, he goes to head north to go back into the U.S., and he's trying to go through the border properly, unlike how he did when he went in. Yep. And the guy's like, how'd you get down here? And he told him, and then he goes, well, wait here. And as he's waiting there, he fucking bolts, hops on a train, gets up into what I didn't catch the city. Did you catch the city?
No, I didn't.
I think it's Southern California. Maybe, I don't know. So he ends up in the city, and he's not liking where he's at. He doesn't like people. He doesn't like the city. He ends up in a homeless shelter, and then he decides, to hell with it. I don't need the bed anymore. I'm taking off. So he hops on another train. This is where he gets his ass beat hard. The train slows down at a crossing, and he kind of pokes his head out of the car, which this is so like 30s and 40s to me. Who hops trains in the 90s? But I guess you did. And one of the, train guys catches him, beats the piss out of him and says, you guys, you friggin' hobo. He goes, don't let me see. He was very respectful to the guy. He goes, yes, sir. I won't do it again, sir.
When you get hit in the face with like a billy club, you have a tendency to listen. Yeah.
I'll ask Heather about that.
If I see you here again, I'll kill you. I won't.
So that was the last of his train riding days, to say the least. So this is where it flashes back to Alaska, and this is where he shoots the moose.
Okay. So
yep.
Tim actually took notes, tried to follow.
I tried.
Like I said,
it's hard.
I got to the corn husking scene, and I was just like, this is so fucking stupid. I was like, if this turns out to be good, I will go back and take notes, but spoiler alert, it doesn't. So I did.
So we already talked about this scene with the moose. Right after the moose incident, he bumps into the hippies again, which they had said previously when they were with him that you got to check out this place. It's an old abandoned military base where the silos. You can get tours of them. It's really cool. And they happen to be parked there, and he bumps into them, which is kind of a cool reuniting thing. And this is where we get introduced to somebody who is in a very successful string of movies that looked like a crack whore. Kristen Stewart. She looked horrible, did she not? I'm not a fan anyway.
No.
I mean, the Twilight series, the only time she looked good in the Twilight series was when she turned into a vampire. Other than that,
I haven't seen any of those movies, but yeah, she does definitely suffer from the resting bitch face.
Yeah.
Because I think she's a fairly attractive girl, but yeah, she just has always that, like, there's a plate of shit under my nose face.
Yeah. So he meets her, and she's a guitar player. There you go. And it's a whole kind of
singer.
Yep. And
which I also love. You know me, I love country music. No. This movie's got it all for me.
Well, at least I would say you sat through it, but you didn't. So
I was in front of the TV for 2 hours and 30 minutes.
So he meets Kristen Stewart, and they develop sort of a hanging out relationship. She obviously wants more from him, and she invites him into the camper once her parents are gone, and she's just in her a tank top and some panties, and he's like, "Oh, we can't do this." And she's like, "Why not?" And he's like, "How old are you?" And she's like, 18. And he gives her a kind of look again, and she goes, "Okay, 16.
17.
Oh, yeah. So she's actually turns out to be 16. That's right.
Oh, was she?
Well, yeah, but she did say 17, and then she goes, "Okay, 16. You're right."
Oh, I did miss the 16 part, because she did look, in that scene, she did actually look fairly attractive. And she's obviously much older than that in real life. But to me, that's another unrealistic part of the movie where it's like, yeah, it wants to paint Chris McCandless as this godly saint.
Stop it.
No, but seriously, dude, you're 22, 23, right?
Yeah, I mean, the juices are flowing, yeah.
Yeah, and you've been on the fucking road.
Okay, all right.
And this girl who looks like Kristen Stewart says, like, "Hey, my parents are going to be gone for an hour and a half." And you go, "How old are you?" And she goes, 18. End of fucking story. You're not going to be like, "Can I see a notarized driver's license and birth certificate?"
I was expecting you to say that story I would sit and watch.
Well, that too. But no, like I said, they try to make him sound like, oh, he was this fucking saint. Like, and I don't know, maybe he wrote that in his memoir, probably after he fucked her. He wrote, like, I was, you know what I mean?
She was fugly, dude.
Yeah, or could have been. It could have very well been not Kristen Stewart, right? But come on, you know what I mean?
All right, I'll give you that.
It'd be one thing if she was like 14 and you were like, yeah, you're clearly not 18. But as a male who'd been out on the road, you're not going to be like, "All right, can I see your driver's license? Can I see your birth certificate? Do you have proof of insurance?" You're just going to be like, 18, good enough for me.
All right, I'll give you that.
I'm at least going to get a blowy before I head over to the next town, hop on another train. So, yeah.
So that's pretty much it. Nothing happens. He says, "Look, but she obviously is hurt."
And then he goes behind the trailer for 10 minutes, and I don't know what he's
doing. Yeah.
But I'm all sweaty.
So he does spend. This is the time where he spends a good amount of time with the hippie couple. At least a week or two, I would guess. And then it's time to part. They're actually going to drive him further north. So the hippie girl hops in with him, and you learn over the interactions with them that she had a child that she lost. And Chris reminds her of her son. So that's kind of heartfelt part of the movie where she's getting attached to Chris. So she dumps him off somewhere.
And he just abandons them.
Yeah, well, he's got Alaska, man. That's all he's thinking about.
Yeah.
So
I need pussy. I'm headed into the wild, baby.
So it flashes back to Alaska, and he's out doing something. It almost looks like he was packing up to leave, because he packed everything and he's turned around and looked at the bus and stared at for a minute. So you're almost thinking, all right, maybe he's going back to civilization, and he said, "I've had enough of this." And
what was his plan? Was his plan to stay out there for like 3 months?
He said he said for some time, I think is what it popped up as, is he could see himself living this way for an extended period of time. But the way it showed in the movie was like he was packing up and he's like, all right, I'm either going somewhere else or I'm getting the F out of here. But he falls into the river and is barely able to get himself back up onto the banking. And he makes himself back to the bus. And then it flashes back to the last town he's at before he goes to Alaska. This here is probably my favorite character in the movie, and his name is Franz, Mr. Franz. He is somewhere in the desert. I'm guessing
California.
Yeah, somewhere in California where there's desert. And he meets this gentleman, Mr. Franz, because he's getting some water at a store. And he says, where's your camp? And he says, well, it's out this way. And he's like, oh, show me. I've never been there. So they're driving along the road and they go past more hippies that are naked. They're all naked and they're kind of hanging out. And it's so funny. Mr. Franz is just staring the entire time he drives by them. But he's like, no, it's a little bit past there. So he's got, Chris has this little tarp attached to a tree for some shade, and he's just staying out there. And Mr. Franz is beside himself that he's doing this. And he befriends Mr. Franz, and he learns that he's an old army guy. He had a family that was killed by a driver in a car accident. And so I think Mr. Franz was meant to meet Chris because he was trying to teach him that family's important. And there's this whole thing about it. It almost sounds like Mr. Franz forgave in person the person who killed his family in the car. And Mr. Franz is trying to explain, even though your parents were dicks and were terrible at raising you, forgiveness is such a great uplifting thing to get to do. And it makes you feel so much better. So I think that was a pretty good thing for Mr. Franz to teach Chris.
Yeah, and he was my favorite character too. And like you said, he told the story of he was in Korea and his wife and son got like cleaned out by a drunk driver on New Year's Eve or something like that while he was deployed. So that means that he's been like living alone for the past 40 years, which is super sad. And he had like a wood burning shop or something like that, and he showed Chris how to
make belts. Yeah, leather. Yeah, make a leather belt.
Leather burning. That's it, right?
Yep.
And so he was like the most sympathetic character, and you like him. And then Chris was telling him about his Alaskan adventure, right? And he's like, "Yeah, I'll drive you to wherever." I can't remember where he drove him to. Like,
I can't either.
Yeah, like some like bus stop or something like that. And then like he kind of like opens up his like heart and soul to him and says like, hey, like, I lost my family. You are on the outs with your family. Like, I would like to spiritually adopt you. Like, would you call yourself this? Like, whatever, because it wasn't, he wanted him to do like a middle name in honor of him or something like that. And again, being a total piece of shit, Chris just like looks at him and goes like, we'll talk about it when I get back, and gets out of the fucking truck. And I was like, I'm glad you die, you piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God. Like that was the one moment. That was the one moment where
he could have had you.
I thought I was going to turn around because finally I got invested in a character because I love this Mr. Franz. And Heather walked back in the room for the third time, and she sat down and was like, oh, this old man is so sweet. I love him so much, and started getting like invested in the story too. And like I said, I was starting to feel like a little bit of a dick for rooting against Chris this entire time. But when he did that, I'm like, I'm glad you died. Like, you know what I mean? Again, not the real person, because I don't know.
At least what we saw on film.
I don't know if the real person was like this, but the character in the movie, you are a piece of shit, and this old man died, and you were another fucking knife in his back. So good for you.
Yeah, that was the only sad part I found, because Mr. Franz was clearly hurt by that exchange, and that old man did nothing but good things for the kid.
Right, and how hard would it have been to be like, oh my God, yes,
that is so awesome. That is,
you're never gonna see him again, even if you made it out. Right,
you would have made his year. You would have made his last 40 years.
But you know what? Kind of like running off into the wilderness and not telling your family or anything.
Selfless.
You're a selfish piece of shit.
Yep. All right. Okay, I'll give you that.
You're turning.
At least I'm not turning. I'm just saying I get. We all have so many dimensions to us. I see that as a big one now that you pointed that out, that he does seem very selfish. Yeah. So Yep, Mr. Franz departs, and but not before Chris makes this belt for himself that chronicles his experiences up to this point, which is pretty cool. I have here minimal notes up to the end. There is a scene that I thought was funny. He's standing by his bus, just shooting his gun in the air, going, "I'm fucking hungry."
Where are all the animals?
Yeah.
Which I did at work the other day. I don't know if you got onto it because I had seen the movie before you had the second.
Well, I didn't recall that scene until I watched it again.
I was out in the parking lot going like, "Where are all the fucking animals? I'm hungry." And you just gave me like a weird look, and I'm like, "We can't have it."
Yeah. I get it. And that's why my ass, I like steak and cheese. I like pepperoni pizza. I love ice cream. I love the boys in blue. There's not cops either.
Which is a steak and cheese with buffalo.
Yeah, buffalo tenders and blue cheese. Yeah. So yummy. I could never go out in the woods like this, but we'll get to that. So it goes kind of back and forth with him struggling for food. And then there's this whole kind of, I would say, mushroom eating experience where there's this scene where the pretty much the end of the movie where he's out hunting for like berries because he can't find food, animals, meat. And he's reciting different names of stuff. And he grabs this and he grabs that and he's just chomping down and he gets wicked sick. Serious abdominal issues. He grabbed the wrong roots. He grabbed a root that's poisonous to humans. And he realizes this because as he's writhing in pain in the bottom of the bus, he grabs his book and he sees that the striations on the leaf are supposed to be lateral, not vertical, not lateral. The ones he has are lateral. And he's like, oh, and there's the movie shows that he sort of starves to death, which is what's believed of when he was found. But before he dies, he's standing outside the bus and he's emaciated. Like he looks like he's from a concentration camp. He's just wearing a loincloth basically. And this big brown bear comes by and just and stops at him and is like smelling him. And he's like, "Oh, this fucker stinks," and takes off. Doesn't do a damn thing to him. So bears know when they have tainted meat.
Stink.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's like, "This one's too lean. It's not worth it."
Yeah, there's no meat on these bones. Yeah. So he basically the movie shows him going into kind of a catatonic state while staring at the sky, laying in his bus. That's the end of it.
Yeah. So I did read that John Krakauer and some people at a university aren't certain whether he ate like a potato seed, which is poisonous, or if he improperly stored other things that grew mold that got him sick. But they did conclude that he got some sort of paralysis from something he ate and that caused him to starve to death, which is gotta be like the worst.
I can imagine. And apparently the route that it showed in the movie was coupled with you're unable to digest anything. So even if he ate something, he wouldn't have been able to digest it. It absorbed nutrients from it. So
yeah, and he was too far out.
Yeah, he couldn't get himself out.
Yep. So he like wrote a note, I guess, saying like, "Hey, I need help," blah blah blah. And a couple of like hunters found it 2 weeks after he died or something like that. And then the movie ends with a picture of him, sitting outside of the bus on a camera that they found that he
undeveloped.
Undeveloped. So, so it is sad that he died in real life, and like I said, we none of us will ever know what the real Chris McCandless was like or what the book was like. But this movie, he is a little bitch and has no redeemable quality. Oh, I take that back. There is one scene that I was like, okay. It was very early on in the movie. He's lined up to smoke this deer or elk or whatever it was, right? And just as he's about to take the shot, he sees a baby deer or elk walk right behind it. And so as hungry as he is, he slings his rifle over his shoulder because he's like, "I'm not going to take out mom when she's got a baby." That was literally the only redeemable quality that I saw in him the entire movie. He was terrible to people that he met. He was terrible to his family.
Wait. he had another one. He
What's
did
that?
not have sex with an underage girl.
Okay, you're right. But again, that's Hollywood. I don't know if that actually happened in the book. No.
No, I gotcha. I gotcha.
Was in the book or real life, because I wouldn't be surprised if you go back and find that the fucking Weinsteins produced or financed this movie, and they're all diddling underage.
You're terrible, but you're funny.
Who was that other guy? Roman Polanski. He might have been behind this too. You know what I mean? Because again, going back to Hollywood, do as I say, not as I do.
Yep. Yep. Unfortunately.
But yes, you're right. Those are the only two redeeming qualities he had.
I do admire. I mean, it's the whole. I admire his not wanting to be so worried about status in society. I do admire him for that. But he went about it, I think, in a way that was churlish.
Insubordinate.
He should have kept in contact with his sister. At least he could have done that. So, okay. Yeah. All right. So, I'm afraid to go down the rest of my list here, but we're going to do it. Memories from first watch. You didn't watch it before this. I don't really recall. Jill was next to me on the couch while I watched the second half of this, and she was awake. She was searching real estate. But she said, she goes, I don't recall this movie. And then when it was the ending scene, she goes, yep, okay, I remember this now, because she remembered his death. I don't recall anything specific from it. How about your favorite scene or favorite death? And I know you're going to say when Chris dies, just because you're such a prick.
My favorite scene by far is that topless girl by the river who had perfect tits, and they were out for at least 2 minutes. That was great.
It's scary, but I agree with you. I really enjoyed the Swedish Travelers. They were so fun and so cool, and that was my favorite scene, was the whole water scene with them. I guess it's safe to say best babe is the Swedish girl. Did you look up Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie?
I didn't.
You're gonna be fucking surprised. All right. So I'm not going to give a guess because I forgot to write down my guess before I looked it up. But what would you give Rotten Tomato? What do you think Rotten Tomatoes gave?
I think this should be like a 40%, but because this is based on critics, I bet it was 90.
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah. 83. So you weren't too far off. 83.
Hey, Hollywood, go fuck yourself.
Again, you heard it on A Worm's Eye View.
Yeah, what's the audience score? Did you look that up?
Audience score was bigger. Yeah. Yeah, dude.
Who possibly popped this in their Blu-ray player? And I was like, oh, this is a good time.
Well, I'm trying to think of what was going on around 2007 that people would really...
Financial crisis.
No, I mean... Where people really
lost a Super Bowl after a perfect
there you go. Everybody was in a sad state.
Yeah.
So who would you be and why?
So I think I'd be Mr. Franz.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah. He was like the only character I even sort of related to because I hate hippies. I can't stand hippies.
I forgive all of you peace folk who listen to the podcast.
No. You don't listen to the podcast. You're too busy playing
smoking peyote. Smoking peyote.
Guitar and doing your CD.
Hey, shut up! I play acoustic.
Yeah, but you cover like metal songs and stuff like that.
True.
You're not playing like what is it, the Grassroots and Creedence Clearwater and shit like that. But I'd be Mr. Franz because he seemed like the only character. The thought of just like living out of a van just makes me want to vomit in my mouth. You know what I mean? I don't know. And the parents seemed normal, other than Chris views them as abusive.
Well, the dad seemed to be at least verbally abusive to the wife.
Right. And again, this story is told from Chris's perspective, which I got to put a giant fucking asterisk next to because I think he's a dink. So if that's true, verbal abuse is not acceptable, let alone, physical or mental abuse. But The parents seemed decent. Like they both had decent jobs and seemed.
Dad worked for NASA, and she ran a business.
And I feel like NASA probably runs a background check, but
I'm sure
Chris knows better. The guy who wants to go live in a bus in the Alaska wilderness, he knows better than NASA.
Man, you loathe him. Anyway,
I do. Like I said, I really hate this character. So Franz is the only one I could really relate to.
I picked the same. I picked Franz, but only because when I climb mountains right now, that's how I feel. Remember when he was climbing that mountain? He's like, oh.
I thought he was going to have a heart attack.
I did too.
He was going to give me another reason to hate Chris because he's like, get up here, you old pussy. You won't.
Stop it. He didn't say that.
I'm paraphrasing. But he was like, you won't even go.
He was encouraging him to live more, dude.
No, but like I said, I was like, watch, Franz is going to drop of a heart attack. And Chris is going to be like, oh, I'm off my Alaskan adventure. Good thing you don't have any family. All right. That won't be sad.
Moving on. Yeah. Would Heather watch this movie and like it?
So she walked into while I was watching it 3 different times because it's, again, 2.5 hours long. And the only part that she even got a little bit invested in was Mr. Franz and the relationship between them. But then when, he pieced out and left Franz heartbroken, she was like, fuck that guy. I hope a bear eats him. Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, well, he dies a more horrific death, if you will. But no, she did not enjoy this the 3 times she walked in. She would not enjoy it if she saw it start. What about Jilly?
Jill saw it, didn't remember it, so my guess is she didn't like it.
Yeah.
And she wasn't too in tune to it this second go around.
I wasn't certain. That'd be Oliver running towards the bathtub.
All right. Would you recommend this movie?
No, I can't imagine anyone who would enjoy this, which is why I like the Rotten Tomatoes or the Roger Ebert 4 stars. It's like, did we watch a different movie? Like I said, I knew going into this wouldn't be my cup of tea because I don't like the wilderness or anything like this. But it was just a poorly structured movie too. So I no redeemable qualities. What about you?
I put meh. I think there are some good lessons to be had by watching this movie, but I think there's better wilderness movies out there, like Rambo.
Fuck yeah.
And Everest. There's just some better stuff out there. But I do think that this shows a lot of the spectrum of the human in general. I just think they could have got to it faster. Okay, burger score. You can't give negatives.
Yeah, like 0.5.
Top or bottom half?
Whatever's lower.
The top half.
Okay.
I gave it a half bottom.
Interesting. So slightly about me. I will say this is, and I am not exaggerating. I would put my hand on a Bible. I would swear on my children. This is the worst movie we have watched yet. Including Epic Movie and Mac and Me.
Those two had such a freaking laugh factor to them.
They were fun and they were quick. This felt like I was dying of starvation. Like, it was just painful. If this had been 90 minutes, I would have been like, wow, that was an unenjoyable.
All right, well, let's not focus.
But being 2.5 hours, I was like, this was fucking torturous. I mean, I think I could hold out waterboarding longer than I could if you popped this in.
Let's not focus on the negative. Let's focus on the positive. We now have in our memory banks Mr. Franz.
Or that chick by the
or the Swedish chick.
All I will think about when I think about this movie is that Swedish chick. So we're going to be in the 1990s, and we have to randomize our genre and our movie.
What an enormous spin.
Oh my God, Cap, you ready?
Yeah, what's up? What do we get for a genre?
Drama, thriller.
Christ. All right, so drama and thriller.
So drama, thriller.
Spin it again, a bit more gently, perhaps. Go ahead. He doesn't take direction well, does he?
And guess what we got?
I have no idea.
Forrest Gump.
Oh,
that's pretty good, dude.
It is good. If I remember correctly, this movie is pushing like 2 hours too, but you're enthralled the entire
hell yeah,
because it tells a story. So this will be a breath of fresh air after the flaming moose turd that was Into the Wild.
All right, folks. So stay tuned. Our next review is going to be Forrest Gump. And I'm excited for this. Yeah. I love this movie.
And we'll also be doing a live episode watch along right after this. And it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be huge. It's going to be the best watch ever because Tim promised me something special after sitting through Into the Wild. So
I did, and I'm going to come through for you.
And I'm fucking stoked for this one because I've never seen it before, and Tim's seen it many times. So
I can quote the whole friggin' thing.
He's going to do his best not to quote everything
you gave me
happens. But I told Tim, in addition to the one he told me, he could have 2 more. But otherwise, I'm going to come through the screen and break his face.
No, he's not. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and good luck if you watch Into the Wild. I wish you the best of luck. Alternatively, read the John Krakauer book and tell us how that is.
Or just listen to this and save 2.5 hours out of your life.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bis später.